We've been here for many, many years. We've been operating in Colombia since 1975, the year that our company was set up. Our headquarters and our first office is in London, just near the Tower Bridge on the Thames. But we've been operational in this environment since 1975, and we've had a full-service office in Colombia since 1985. It's our second oldest office in the world outside of our London headquarters. And in the 40+ years that we've been operational in this environment, it's been incredibly interesting to watch the development of Colombia. And it's been a very good news story for both our company and for Colombia generally, because when we first started here, we were dealing with very specialist risk issues that related to security, a whole range of issues that involved people being taken into captivity, extortion, etc. But now, 40 years on from when we first started operating in this environment, we're dealing much more with foreign direct investment, helping them understand who they're doing business with, understanding the political milieu in which their operations exist, understanding communities, etc. But it's very different to the very security-focused work that we had at the outset of our operations here in Colombia back in 1975. Yeah, it's interesting. Compliance has been a very big area for control risk, particularly in the last 10 years here in Colombia. And we've worked on some of the largest antitrust and anti-corruption cases, not only here in Colombia, but in Peru, Ecuador, in the Andean region generally. And a lot of the initial impetus related to compliance in this region was pushed by the United States, to be quite honest. The Department of Justice was very proactive in its pursuit of companies and individuals that were operating in Latin America. Probably finds its highest formalized expression with the Odebrecht investigation that came out of the Lava Jato themes out of Brazil. But the really encouraging thing I think we're seeing here in Colombia is the fact that Colombia has now taken this example and they're now implementing their own very strict anti-corruption laws, which we've seen recently. And before that, Dr. Robledo has done a fantastic job at the SIC in implementing quite stringent anti-competition laws, etc. So I think whereas traditionally we saw a lot of the compliance work that we were doing driven from the United States, Colombia has now taken on its own identity and developed its own legislation and enforcement, which has been fantastic for us to see. And you've seen it through a number of cases that we've worked on in recent years. We can't talk about the names of those cases for obvious reasons and client confidentiality, but they're obviously front page news stories here in Colombia, in your publication and other leading publications. There's a whole range of work that we do in relation to the fraud area, and it's obviously a major area here in Latin America, like it is in many other parts of the world. Where we like to start with clients in relation to fraud is the prevention of fraud. We like to use our forensic capacity, our information technology capacity, to go through an organisation in the first instance and determine their vulnerability to fraud being conducted in the first place. That's ideal. But more often than not, we're brought into a situation where a fraud has already been perpetrated. We find out through either an internal whistleblower or through some other avenue that a fraud's being conducted, and then we use a combination of IT forensic experts, forensic accountants, and interviewing experts, often with a law enforcement background or intelligence background, to conduct these interviews and put together evidence that will allow the company to pursue that either legally or at least remove the individual from their organisation. Yeah, it's interesting. We try and educate our clients about these issues, and new privacy legislation that's come into Colombia has informed our clients about the kind of information that's available. But many of the times when we conduct one of these investigations, we're doing it in a way that the person who is the subject in the investigation isn't aware. And the reason we do that is to maintain the integrity of the evidence that's available. So we can, for example, if a person's using their computer, we can, once we have the legal go-ahead, we can remotely image their computer or their iPhone or their WhatsApp account or or any of those sorts of information, may be alarming to some people depending on what they put on their WhatsApp account. We get access to all that information. So particularly as we enter this age of technology and more information is available in soft copy rather than hard copy, then it's becoming the real issue. So in a way, I think Colombia is probably at a point the United States was 10 years ago. So that's kind of really where we get the best information for conducting these anti-corruption, anti-competition, fraud investigations that we conduct. Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, we're entering this sort of age of technology and artificial intelligence, etc., but humans still are the best source of intelligence anywhere in the world. And anybody that's worked in the CIA or MI6 or any of the international leading intelligence agencies will tell you that humans still are the best source of intelligence. So, so we've been lucky enough that we've been operational here for the last 40 plus years. We've developed a very strong network of contacts that can very discreetly allow us to understand exactly what are the issues that may involve an individual, a company, an industry where a multinational company or a large Colombian company is trying to expand. But yeah, the human intelligence element can't ever be underestimated. Technology is just one element of that. In our sector, in what we do, transactional testing is the big new sort of buzzword. And transactional testing, where you've got a very large oil and gas company or a very large retail company here in Colombia, you can't get around to every individual to interview them and acquire that human intelligence that you were talking about. So we've developed quite advanced. We have one of the largest forensic labs in the region here in Colombia, and we've developed this transactional testing capacity whereby we can use keywords and computer systems to drill through a whole range of information within an organisation to try and identify red flags. Unusual payments to subcontractors, government official payments that kind of look unusual, etc. Exactly. We can save a lot of money and we can save a lot of time by using technology to drill through. But then at the end of the day, it's ultimately has to be a human interaction to get to the final smoking gun, which is an expression in English for the ultimate evidence. Usually, but that'll lead us in a direction where there's metadata that's very hard to consume on a sort of a personal level. It's a very good question. I mean, the sort of the banner story here is the fact that Colombia's come a long way. It's a great news story. Lots more foreign direct investment coming in. So my first point to unpick that question slightly would be that there's a lot more business to go around now. When we first started, we were a very unique company in a very unique market. But since that time, we've expanded our services. And I think the thing that gives us the competitive advantage in this market is the fact that we've got a very multidisciplinary team. We're not all accountants. We're not all lawyers. We've got lawyers and accountants, obviously, but we have people from intelligence backgrounds, military backgrounds, etc. We've got a very multidisciplinary background that allows us to bring together an understanding of the reputational landscape in Colombia, but informed by a political context, both at a local level and a macro level. But also we can understand security because we've been doing that for many years, and we can bring these bits all together. So if you're a foreign oil and gas company that's interested in coming into Colombia, we can help you understand what are the threats to executives that are visiting a remote area in La Frontera, but by the same token, understand how you can most responsibly interact with the local community, which is an ever-increasing issue here in Colombia, and at the same time work out who you're doing business with, make sure that their commercial and reputational track record is exactly as you'd want it to be, etc. There's many companies that do bits of that. There are security companies, there's investigations companies, there's political risk companies, but nobody can do it together. Nobody can offer a multi-Latina company in Medellin who's interested in going into Guatemala the breadth of understanding about that environment like control risk can.
Michael, thank you for being with us here in La República.
Muchas gracias por su tiempo.